this is Meg Heritage with Positivity in Practice, and I'm here today with my peer and one of my besties, Steve Volkers. Hi, Steve.
Hi.
How are you?
This is awesome. I'm like really geeked right now.
I love that about you.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I just, you see podcasts and we've done like stuff together, right? On Zoom or whatever. But this is legit. You got a legit setup here. So,
Well, I'm super grateful, right?
Yeah.
I didn't put this whole thing together for you.
Yeah.
I would but if you wanted me to, but I did not
No,
do
but
this.
I did not. I expected a camera or two and a couple mics. So
Yeah.
this is sweet. So,
Rediscover is fantastic. If people are out there looking to do the same kind of thing, it's certainly available to you too. So
yeah.
today I want to jump into the real estate market in general and just ask you a few questions. But before that, can you tell us a little bit about you?
A little bit about me. Yeah. So I am married with 7 kids. So that's life right now, right? It's running. Yeah, it's running kiddos from thing to thing. But obviously we're here talking about real estate. So I've been doing that for 18 years now. It's starting to get to that point where you're like, wow, okay, I'm the elder in the room. It's starting to be, which is different, right? I had a men's book club. Randomly, we started on Monday, and just talking about the market situation and just seeing agents. There was a couple of agents in the room, and they've only been in it for 10 or 11 years, and they don't know the market situation we're in right now, and they're all freaking out. And it's like, oh, okay. Like my memories are very different than your reality, right? And so, which is great. Like their reality is very different than mine too. But so 18 years. Obviously, I was a KW guy originally for a long time. Built a big team, had my own brokerage, worked for big brokerages. Now I'm just slinging houses with Rachel and just a little guy.
I love Rachel so much.
Back to the just slinging some houses.
Okay, so I was trying to think of this when I was driving in this morning. When did we meet? Is it like 10 years?
It's got to be, right? And I don't even remember was it just like a rebar or something? I don't remember the actual connectivity of when that occurred.
I don't either.
Right?
And I think I always say talk to strangers safely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, we became close right away, right? There was some kind of connection where it's like, okay, like you're going through stuff, I go through stuff, and like you're cool, let's chill, right? And it's funny because we like hang out like twice a year at best, right?
Yep.
But like the minute that we're here, it's like, oh, let's like get very deep very quickly.
Yeah, and we've done some cool 911 taco meetings and some cool 911 phone calls and
yeah, but also like just some really cool. I mean, I knew of you. I think some of it was obviously the start of the sort of the LMCU Berkshire Hathaway, where we did the big speaking gigs, and then ended up at Meyer Gardens with like really amazing people, right?
Yeah, and like 1,000 people in a crowd.
Yeah, that was kind of random, right?
Yeah, I think that is it. I think Lisa DeLass like threw us together and Meg and all of that, and that's when we really started that LMC thing.
Like we knew each other, but then it was like the LMCU thing was like, oh, let's connect Lakeshore and Grand Rapids, who are I'm leading, but who do I find as a partner?
Yeah.
And that's where it took off. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I really like about you is we both have what I would call, huge blessings in this and in a great deal of success, but we don't do things in the same way.
Yeah.
And right now, the market's a bit wonky. It's wonky for agents. It's wonky for sellers. What you just said, I always equate that to order taking versus being a sales professional, right?
Sure,
for a while there, you could just show... you could put a listing out there and then you'd have 47 offers and off we went. So I'm interested in how are you keeping it positive on a daily in a market that is, it's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be honest, it's a grind to stay positive in it, right? Like even for me doing it 18 years, there's been moments that I'm like, peace, I'm out, right? Like, let me go do something else. So I think going through the market crash, right, getting in 06, early 07.
That was fun.
That was fun and different. And so I remember the guys and girls that I was getting in young, right, and starting it out. And the 18-year-old veterans, right, were like, we're out and we're going to go work for Geico, or we're going to, And so it's interesting, like to even picture, like, are you that guy now, right?
Oh,
Are you
jeez.
the
Are we
Geico
that
guy,
guy?
right? Right. And so it's fascinating to watch. I think for me, it's support at home, right? And saying like, hey, like I got you, you got me, right? Kind of a thing. And then it's realizing that there's seasons in life, and sometimes it's slower, and there's a purpose for slow,
Mhm.
right? And so not to panic of, okay, like I've done probably the least amount of transactions in my career in a year this year, but I also got married, blended 7 kids, a number of other things that we don't need to talk about here. Like and so it's kind of a blessing in disguise,
In disguise,
in
yeah.
disguise,
Yeah.
right? Because it's like, okay, like, but yeah, to have a year, but then all of a sudden to get a developer phone call and meet with them yesterday, it's like, oh, in March I could have 25 listings, right? And then, so it's, I think there's seasonality to the profession, not just in the year, but to the profession to say, like, there's times that it's okay to slow down a little bit and refocus on what's important. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's a grit and tenacity, I think, in both of us, and also a faithfulness in general that, like, even my best efforts, I can't do what God can do for me.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes John will say I put banana bread in the microwave and brownies come out of the oven. You know,
Yeah.
I think that is a thing. Generally, we just like humans and we want
Yeah.
to be able to help in whatever way do you know what you are on the Enneagram?
I should, and I took the test, but I don't remember right offhand.
Okay, I want to know
Yeah,
someday.
yeah,
Someday I want to
yeah,
know. I want to
yeah.
know if you're a 2-3 or a 3-2,
I could
someplace in
pull it
that
up,
space.
I'm
The helper.
sure.
It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So when you are in these difficult situations with newer agents,
yeah,
I know you and Rachel do your own thing, but I also know that you get what I get and people call you and ask
yeah,
for advice. What are you telling them about the market and staying positive?
yeah. I don't think it's necessarily newer agents. I think it's the 8-year-old agent, even, right? Or that's what I'm seeing, where not that they're order takers. I think that they are
Yeah.
successful, right? They've put themselves out there. They're good producers. They try hard. They communicate well. But this is a big shift for them, right? If you got in 12 and 13 and 14, it's been a really good run, right? You had COVID, but then we got low interest rates. And so it's been a good run for those folks, values increasing. And, they didn't ever have to sit at a table with someone crying, losing all their life savings and having to go through, foreclosure or short sale and having to rebuild. Um, so I guess what I'm saying is like this is the time to tool up, and to learn, and then to learn that communication is still the number one gift we have in our profession. Like if we don't communicate, we aren't going to succeed, right? And communication isn't just text messaging, right? We've gotten
Right.
away with using text, in the communication because things move so fast, or they have been. Now things are slowing down, and you need to be able to communicate and use your voice and tell people it's okay, like I got you. And so I think that that's a new skill set that a lot of the newer agents will need to learn, is how to communicate in a way that says like, I'm your guy who's positive or girl that's positive. I know what I'm talking about and I'm going to lead, right? And my
Yeah.
value is in leadership. It's not just in finding a random house, right? It's not just opening the door. It's in leading you through this process. Just like any other profession, a leader is the one who gets paid, right? And so I think that I went to a random Jeff Glover meetup
You did
thing.
yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday.
Yeah.
Or was it yesterday or 2 days ago? It was sometime this week,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Wednesday. Yeah.
Wednesday. And like all of it was so basic, right? And that is great. But I still was like, okay, like I need to tool up. Like I can't assume that I know it, even though I've been doing it 18 years. So why
Yep.
don't I go and just listen to Justin talk about the basics again? But the basics are still the basics and they still work, right? So,
Yep. And I actually was in Traverse City and watched a lot of that and had another agent that was there and said, does this bother you because the people who are up on the stage right now are selling 50% of what you're selling and haven't done it consistently? And I said, absolutely not. There's something out there that somebody
yeah,
is doing that is working for them that I don't know about and I can learn every day too. I do think sometimes it feels like a head full of Weight Watchers and a belly full of donuts,
Yeah.
where I'm like,
Yeah.
I know that. You
Yeah.
know, it's that consistency time over time over time and just keeping in touch with people and doing the same things over and over and adding maybe some new things. And then one of the things I love about you is that your social media presence is fantastic. I know you go in and out of it.
Yeah.
And I've always honored how real you are there in
Yeah,
telling the
thank you.
story of what's actually
Yeah.
happening. Are you gonna, beef that? Is there a plan for 2025? And
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I had Kevin, right? But then ultimately 2024 was a clearing of stuff,
yeah,
right? So for me, it was like a year where I'm going to get down to just being Steve, right? And even the social media over the last week or two is like, I'm just Steve is my
yeah,
new sort of hashtag, right? And got a new young girl that's running a lot of that social media. I'm not the poster necessarily as well, like, but I can create, right? I'm a creator. So yes, the goal is to continue to create and just to be Steve, right? And I think some of that of like running your own company or working for the man, right? When we work for bigger companies, you're afraid or you're hesitant on how much you can communicate. But now just being Steve, I'm probably will be more transparent and
yeah,
like, hey, like this is how I see it. Take it or leave it, right? And I've always found in social media, and I even Justin said it at the Glover thing, like you're gonna attract the people that are like you or that want
mhm,
to be serviced like you, right? And so to be unauthentic or try to be something that isn't you, it doesn't help, right? We put a deal together this week on a nice little lakefront in Greenville. And she said, well, what do you think, Steve? And I said, well, I like this one. She's like, and I said, I'm sorry, I can be really negative at times. She's like, yeah, you really didn't like the Rockford one. And I'm like, no, it was not well built. And I'm not going to lower myself to panders because you wanted it,
right,
right? And I said, most agents would have allowed you to buy that $1.8 million house in Rockford, but I just am not that guy. And I'm sorry that caused conflict in your marriage, didn't it? And she's like, it did. And I was like, like, okay, but like
you asked.
you, but, but
Did they ask?
conflict now
Did they
or
ask?
conflict later,
Right.
which do you want when the house starts having issues? And now they're buying an 870. And so I lost $1 million worth of commission, right? Mentally
Right.
on what I could have done if I just kept my mouth shut. Sometimes Rachel's like, just keep your mouth shut, Steve. But it's like, but that's why you hire me. And I'm fine with losing clients or whatever if they don't want the reality.
Yeah.
But other agents, that's not the case. And I think that's the beauty of our industry. You can choose. But yeah, so social media and everything, I'll probably be a little harder hitting because it's just Steve.
I love
Yeah.
the 12 days of Christmas
Yeah.
thing. If you guys aren't, following him,
Yeah.
certainly do that. It's a blast to
Yeah.
watch the
Yeah,
12
this
days
will be our
of
third
Christmas.
year. Yeah.
Yeah, I may steal it and do the 12 days of Grand Haven and
Yeah,
keep it
please
local.
do. I mean, everything's like repurposed, right? Like very few
Yeah.
things are genuinely new, right? It's like, oh, okay, like I think we grabbed it because nonprofits were doing 12 days of giving, right,
Sure.
in November or whatever to build up. And I was like, oh, that would be cool. And let's just change it to this, right?
Well, and that's the cool thing I think about you and I is that we've always been collaborative, not competitive.
Yeah.
And I think that we need more of that in general in the industry.
Yeah.
I find that I have zero imposter syndrome when I'm working with a buyer or seller, but there is a part of me that still is like, well, am I relevant? Like, I've been doing this for, I don't know, I think 18, 19
Yeah.
years too. Is it okay that I give my advice right now?
Right.
Maybe I'm saying the wrong thing, or maybe their market is different. I think the neat thing about, what you do is you stay in your lane. You know exactly what's going on with the markets that you deal in.
Yeah.
And you do a really good job of figuring out, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? And what is my role?
Yeah.
What do you think is going to happen going into this spring segment with buyers and sellers? Do you have any?
Yeah, I think it's going to take off. It's been pent up for for almost a year and a half, right, with interest rates climbing.
Mhm.
So lower availability. Now we're saying there's more on the market when I think Kent County or whatever was like 1.5 months of inventory, which still is nothing, right?
Right.
But people are like, oh man, there's lots on the market. It's like, well, yeah, but buyers are pickier, right? So it's how much of that 1.5 really is on the market. There's a very small window of that. The rest of it's just junk or overpriced, right?
Right.
So I think if sellers are willing to understand value, what their value is, not compared to a CMA of the past, but a CMA of the current, and willing to do the work to attract a buyer, they will sell quickly with that multiple offers. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get back to the 20, 25 offers on a house, right? Maybe
Yeah.
if it's a first-time home buyer house that's like beyond cute and underpriced, right? And we know those agents that will underprice a house by like 20 grand just to get 20 offers to look amazing.
Right.
And I'm always annoyed by that, but it's fine. That's their business practice. And that's the beauty of our business. We can choose however we want to market and help our clients. I think the burden will be on the sellers though, even though we have low inventory, the seller still is going to be, is now more than ever responsible for, so my listing presentation and everything in my conversation is always, there's three things that sell a house, is always my thing that I go back to. And the three things are price, condition, and marketing.
Okay.
And so I say, I'm responsible for marketing, 100%, that's on me. And my listing presentation is about that, right? Then I'm going to show you value and I'm going to tell you about condition. Those two are 100% your responsibility. I can only counsel you in those. Right. And so those two are going to be critical for the seller. They are right now with houses being on the market 20 days or 30 days or more, that they need to choose longer period of time being on the market or not selling or handling price or condition. Right. And those aren't normal conversations that agents are used to having. Right.
Yeah.
So that came out of that foreclosure, that came out of 10, 11, 12, 13 before the market took off, that sort of 3 was what I used. And I've always used it now. But it is more critical now, right? And so I think that agents have to be able to be communicators to really help their clients understand price and condition.
Yeah.
Instead of just being like, oh, everything sells, we have low inventory, here's the pricing we should set at, let's go, right? And I just take cute photos and I'll do a reel for you, right? Like that's just not, I don't think that's going to set the agent or the listing up for success, right?
No, I don't either. Mine is price, location, and physical condition. It's nice that you put one of them on you.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I mean, if you're through 7 days, 7 showings, and you don't have offers, something's up, and we need to start to figure it out.
But that's not normal for the 10-year agent, right?
Absolutely not.
That's something we were trained on in that first 8 years of our career before the 10 years that we've had. Was how do you have those hard conversations, right? How do you communicate weekly? You know, we used to every Monday have that email that went out, said, how many showings did you have? What was the feedback? Would you like to speak to us about adjusting price or condition? This is what we did on marketing. That's not a thing that agents are used to, right?
No, and I can't imagine learning it right now. Like the NAR judgment and all of the things that are going on inside of that space. I think one of the things that I've been the saddest about is why can't you tell people why we're valuable? Why can't you explain you won't care what I make if I get you double what you think, like whatever, I get you 15 or 30 or whatever more than what you're anticipating. Like, let's have a math conversation and let me really tell you what it is that we do and how we're going to do it and bring the value.
Right.
And I don't mean all agents were order takers. I just mean when you have a listing and you have 10 offers, that side was easy.
Yeah.
Easier than it certainly is right now. And then, on the buyer's side, you might have showed 50 houses in order to get one offer through. And that was really difficult too. So I appreciate that when you're looking at it in totality, you and I both get to say, like, we did 07, 08, we've done downturns, we've done multiple election cycles, we've done all of these things. And it's just brushing off the tools that we had the last time instead of being like, oh my gosh, the sky is falling. Like, what's happening?
Yeah. And it feels that way, right? Like there is a feeling like, oh man, the phone's not ringing. And that's going to create anxiety for people, right? Like,
Yep.
wait a minute, like I'm used to being busy. And if I'm not busy and it's quiet, then I'm in my head and I don't like my head, right?
Right.
We've had those
Yep.
conversations, especially entrepreneurial real estate people want to be busy. That is part of the ethos of the job, right? And so when they're not running, then there's time to think, and then it feels like failure, right? And it's like, well,
Mhm.
but you're not failing just because of like, if the market's not there, it's not there. You can't make it happen, right?
No.
Like, yes, there are guys that, Glover would be a prime example, will just make more phone calls, do the things. All true, right?
Right.
But there's a certain like reality is still reality, right? If there's just not transactions, and we have a lot of us now, agents out there, yeah, there's going to be harder. It's going to harder to come by. I would go back to the NAR stuff. I really did not get invested in it.
Mm-mm, me
I
neither.
I people, that was one thing that I made a conscious decision early on with the NAR stuff, and changing to a brokerage. As a broker, you're in it, and I know you have your own boutique brokerage here, but I just pulled myself away from it and said, it's going to figure itself out. Not
Yep.
any different than short sales and foreclosures. It's just another process in which our careers or our professions are going to have to adjust. But am I still needed? Yes.
Right.
And will I get paid? Yes. How? I don't know. But I
Yeah.
don't need to, if I vest myself into all how and why, and am I, scripts are great. There's nothing wrong with scripts. And I learned them well when I was young, right, in the profession. And I still use them. Obviously, the 3 is a script that I can put out to anybody, right? But I don't, I just didn't put a lot of stock in it and worry about it. Because if you worry about it, then nothing comes from it. I do think that buyer agents and big teams have something to worry about. I just do. I think the big teams, and I've thought that since the NAR settlement, are going to struggle to have their buyer agents. If they've got 5 buyer agents or more,
Mhm.
they're going to struggle. I think the small teams with, a really good listing agent and buyer agent, and then a buyer assistant / buyer agent, 1 or 2, that can be healthy. And I think will be healthy. But I think those big teams are going to start to struggle unless the top agent just is scoring a pile of listings.
Right.
But the days of buyer leads and having a team where you're splitting 50-50 on the buyer lead side, I think that's going to dry up or significantly dry up in the next year or two. And we're already seeing that play out. I mean, the listing agents are getting the calls from the buyers that we didn't before, right? If you have
Yep.
a listing, before you'd have showings by agents, you might get one call here or there, or one text message, or one Zillow lead from your list. Like, not a lot, right? But now anybody I talk to, and even with the listings that we have, we're getting the calls.
Yeah.
The buyers are calling us directly, especially if they're not in our local market. They're moving here. They aren't calling a friend to ask for a referral. They're calling the listing agent and trying to figure out, okay, do I like the listing? Do I like the listing agent? Can I save money on commission based on the new NAR settlement? What does that look like for me? So I do think your buyer agent world of free leads, they're not free because they were splitting 50-50 and
Right.
we were
Yeah.
buying them for them, right?
Yeah.
But I think that world, if you're on a big team as a buyer agent and you're building your 2025 goals off that listing agent providing you X amount of Zillow deals and the conversion numbers that come from
Right.
that, I would turn that back and figure out how to get back to door knocking or cold calling or whatever. Like, you've got to get out and get it. You can't expect it to come through a buy lead program
No,
much longer.
yeah, I agree. I totally agree. I think you're right about the spring market and how things are going to move forward there. And I invested in learning everything that we needed to do in order to be in compliance.
Right.
I did not drink the Kool-Aid of, oh, wow, I'm no longer, valuable because I had enough clients in front of me, some of which were in divorce, job loss, relocation, death,
Right.
injury, like all of these things
The
that we
normal
do life,
things.
right?
Yeah, life happens
It's
and they need
always
to do a
happening.
transaction, right?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that because of the way we come at it so heart-centered,
Yeah.
it's like I've got choices. Like I could go do something else. I have degrees and all kinds of things.
Right.
Like I really enjoy doing life with people in this particular way, and
Yeah.
nights and weekends and all the things that come
Yeah.
along with it.
Yeah.
I want to end with uh your big why right now. Like, why continue to do this? Why continue to
Yeah.
push? I know 7 children and a lot of college and all of those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And
If I'm honest, it's money, right? If I'm really honest.
yeah, I love that.
Because we have taken on a lot of debt over the last year. Like being calm and not doing lots of transactions and spending lots of money, those don't really match, right?
Sure.
So some of it's that. Some of it's also just proving to myself that I can do it again.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that.
You're the
right
king
now,
of reinvention, though. You're like,
right?
I'm over here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that.
Yeah,
And I would
so-
argue with you, knowing you now for
Yeah.
however many years it is. Money's great. That's not your real why.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's
what
a
are you
driver
going to do
right
with
now.
that money is
Yeah.
the real why,
Yeah.
right? Like,
yeah. So going to like Glover's thing and showing up, and I haven't shown up in a while. Like
yeah.
if I think about like I don't remember I didn't go to NAR this year, and that's and I didn't go last year. So then like that's been a while since I've been like, okay,
So we're going next year?
Yeah, we are.
Okay.
I don't know where even it is, but yeah.
Probably Dubuque or something.
Yeah,
We're gonna
something
be
crappy, right?
fantastic for us.
Because Boston looked awesome when I saw pictures of
Boston
everybody going.
is awesome.
So I think it's showing up for me is the why. And then it's also like opportunity. So Ellen Grace and I are starting a little consulting company, right?
Okay.
And so, meeting with people and sort of saying like, hey, like, I'm a really good consultant. I really help people figure things out in life.
Yeah.
And real estate is an avenue, but there's so many other avenues. And so for me, it's probably the big why is diversification of the avenues, right? And so it's like, I love developments, right? And meeting with a developer yesterday, it was like, oh yeah, this is breath. Like I love to figure out why they're building what they are and tell them that it probably shouldn't be built that way, and they're like, oh, I didn't think of that. Right.
Let's look at the absorption rates and how long this is going to take and what your carry is.
Why are you building
And
2,000 square foot plus townhomes when that's not your buyer, right? So for me, I think the big why is still being figured out, but I think it's back to learning. And back to growing, where I took a season off through divorce and through being quiet, right? It was like, okay, I need to be quiet because to be loud doesn't help me right now. And then to be stable at home again and to feel that like there's a foundation to rebuild on. So for me, it's like, can I do it again? Which I know I can.
Yeah, absolutely.
But even going again to like, the Glover thing was just a really eye-opening experience to me because I was like, okay, like I'm not learning much here, but I showed up. And so it's starting to think like, okay, let's start like showing up and seeing what that looks like. And I put up a post on our 5-star thing yesterday. And I'm like, you guys are all saying like, we're not sure how to sell this house because it's been on the market 20 days. Why don't we start doing agent tour again? And they're like, what's that? And I'm like,
oh, wow.
Like this idea of
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, if houses are going to be lasting, let's go see them together and then let's give feedback together and let's grow together. And so that like energizes me, right? This idea of like, oh, like I could lead agent tour like back in the day, right? Where I learned. And I remember
brokers
being
open.
brokers
do you think we're
open.
priced right? Like drop
Right.
your opinion and price in your name.
I
and
learned more in the car with
Love
Hugh
Yeah.
driving, and I would always get in the car with Hugh because he was very good at asking great questions. Like, what did you think of the price and why? What should they have done? Like, okay, moving on to the next house. And I learned neighborhoods and pricing and communication with the 8 people in the car or whatever it was,
Yeah.
right?
They still do it in South Haven.
Do they?
Yep. They do
Good
it all
for
the
them.
time. And I love it. So when I don't know that everybody who's not in our business will get this, and maybe only people who've, like and follow us are listening right now, but every January 1, we're guaranteed to make $0.
Right.
And so when Steve's talking about what I'm going to do for the next year, every good agent that I know is really looking in that November, December timeframe for, what did I do that worked? What did I do that I need to release and let go of? So as we go into 2025, my words for 2025 are peace and joy.
Okay.
Do you have a word yet?
Do I have a word yet? Yeah, you're such a wordsmith, right?
I know. I always ask Steve, did you read this book? Did you read this book?
Yeah.
And then finally he fired back at me like, man, I'm dyslexic. I don't read books. I don't read books.
But I started a book club.
I know.
I started a book club myself. Like I was like, we should do a book club with some
That
dudes.
was my favorite thing, though. That was my favorite thing when you were like, hey, listen, I just read a book. I'm like, that's fantastic. As a former English teacher, I couldn't love this more.
Yeah. So I think persistence is always a word that I like.
Love
right?
that.
Right, where it's like, okay, let's just grind and go for it. I still like the word calm. It's been a word that I've used, right? I did 6 years ago or 7 years ago, which was probably the start of this sort of rebuilding Steve journey. I did a 3-day thing intensive with a lady that just sort of mapped out my whole life, right?
Yeah.
Of like, here's all the triggers, here's all the traumas, here's the ups and the downs. And based on that, here's your story and here's your words. And the sort of phrase, and I'd had to pull it up, but the thing that came across of my heart was to bring people into peace and rest and calm. Like my job is to take on that burden for people or help them process that burden so that eventually peace and calm. And so in real estate and in everything I do, it's like, okay, I'm very good in the trauma. I'm very good in the busyness. I'm very good in the stress that comes from our profession. And I'm the guy that you're going to get on the phone with me. And at the end of the phone call, you're going to be like, yeah, I'm good, Steve.
Yeah,
right.
You are.
That's that. So I would say it's that calm, that I like the storm, right? Which it hasn't been stormy for me, which is probably a good thing. So like a new process, right? To be calm myself. But I generally excel when it's like this. So the real estate space of being calm over the last year, and now this idea of like, okay, which piece am I going to do for consulting? Which piece am I going to do for real estate? Like, let's go build again. That feels stormy and feels exciting, right?
Yeah,
so,
I agree. Well, I want to end by saying thank you. Thank you for being such a great friend.
Yeah.
Thank you for being my peace and calm in some of my more, whoa, what is going on right now, and just needing perspective as a brokerage owner and a leader, the collaboration and the kindness that you've shown me and the cool things that we've been able to do together. I'm really grateful for you.
Well, thanks for having me. This is so cool. These guys are sweet.
I know.
I wish I could turn the camera and highlight like this cool space.
Yes.
So,
and I do want to say, Steve is someone that I can get, generally speaking. If I feed him tacos, he will show up. So
I will.
In our comments, if there are people out there who feel like, as two seasoned brokers, leaders who have been able to navigate this market, or if there are buyers or sellers out there and you have questions at all that you want to put into the comments section, we will look at those and we'll be happy to come back and do this again for you and answer anything that we can answer for you.
Yeah, people helped us, right? And so and I think that there's plenty to go around, and we both have that mindset is like our blessings don't come from our grind, right? Our blessings come from above. And so it's not like to help somebody else isn't taking away from me. It's building me. So
we're truly better together. So thank
cool.
you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate
This was awesome.
you.
All right.
Bye.
See you guys.
We hope that you enjoyed today's podcast. If you're like me and you're looking for positivity in practice, please like, follow, or subscribe to find more people who are being positive.